There we go. Welcome everybody to Leeds Judges TV. Now I've got a special guest now. I've got Micky on board, no Dan today, and we're going to talk about taking back football. Is that right, Micky? Is this what we're thinking of doing? Something like that?
Yeah, we are. There's a movement that's going to be arising in 2025. There's a book out in 2 weeks in December. Football: The People's Shame: How to Revolutionise the National Sport. And I'm going to explain the concept to you, Lee, and hopefully get some gunners on board.
Yeah, hopefully.
Some gooners. Sorry,
some gooners. That's it. We get some gooners now. Just a little bit of background. Leeds fan, I understand. So how long have you been a Leeds fan?
Yeah, I'm a Northerner, mate. Yeah, and I've been a Leeds fan all my life. And this movement's about uniting all football fans who share a passion and a kind of religious kind of connection to their club, really. Because when you think about football and what's been going on, we're the ones that are losing out. We're the ones that have been cut out. So it's about uniting people. And hopefully we'll get it across in this chat.
Yeah, So I think it's something that everybody could get on board with a little bit now, because I do think, I don't know how you feel about it in the sorry to mention the Championship for you guys at this moment in time, but I don't know how you actually feel about it. Where I think football, it needs something happening to it. Like, it's not as it's nowhere near as enjoyable as it used to be. I have to say that. And I think that some sort of change has got to be coming, and you know, like with your book and everything like that, it could be the right time, this, Micky.
Yeah, the wider political landscape and as well as the wider footballing landscape is all kind of falling into place. It's fertile ground for a revolution, and that's what we need. And honestly, I don't think this is really a bold claim, Lee, but this is the best political idea of the 21st century. And it sounds like a bold claim, but then you think, what good political ideas have we had this century? I can't think of any. The country's going down the bloody pan.
Yeah.
And football actually is a microcosm of the wider world, or Britain at least, because when you think about it, Britain doesn't own anything anymore. We're owned really by American corporations, or foreign corporations at least. And the same is true of football. So this is a way of actually using Brexit for a start. It's given us a few opportunities, and we'll discuss this later. And it's about national sovereignty, and it's about really putting British cultural heritage in the hands of the British, where it belongs. Because, you know, you mentioned the Championship before, and Arsenal fans won't be really familiar with it. Of course, you're looking at the top end. We all look in our own club's bubble, don't we? We're all in our own club's bubble.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, there's something about the Championship. When you're a rubbish Premier League team, it's rubbish. It's really bad. And when you're a great Championship team, it's loads better. I mean, I feel sorry for Southampton. I went down to Wembley, not far from where, you know, a lot of Gooners will live, and obviously North London, you know. And it was a good day out. And it was unfortunate for Leeds fans who lost the game. But I remember thinking at the time, I don't want to go up. Everyone wants to win in the short term, but there's no point in going up. We're having a good time in the Championship. You look at Southampton, because they beat us. They're in the Premier League. They've won one game.
Yeah.
It's just pointless when you're getting beat all the time.
It is a fantastic point, and you don't really want that, do you? No. I know that sounds silly, like, you know, and it must be difficult for a Championship team. I don't know, like an Ipswich or someone like that winning every week or most weeks, because otherwise they wouldn't be at the top. And then the following season, hardly winning the game, a bit like Burnley last season, like, you know what I mean, the year before, like, you know, they win the league quite comfortably, and then they hardly win a game. I get that. You know, we're very fortunate as Arsenal fans that doesn't happen, but you have to think of the wider picture of football, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I know that you've got a lot of frustrations about the way football's been run, and you're part of the top six. You're supposedly part of this amazing. You know, everything's amazing for you guys, but it isn't, and it's become really soulless football as well. It's almost corporate, isn't it? The way that teams play now is quite corporate. The way that football is played, it's become like efficient, hasn't it? They recycle the ball. They're too scared of getting caught on the break. Everything goes side to side. How many times does Jack Grealish get the ball and pass it backwards? You know, when Jack Grealish was playing for Villa, it was central. He was moving forward, taking people on. But they don't want to take risks. And what they're doing really is they're destroying the beautiful game. And they've managed to find ways around it, because football is the lowest scoring sport in the world. And that's why it gives people a chance. But now they're getting around that. I mean, we can talk about if you want to win the league. I mean, what I've done is I've a really simple bit of research. I've shown the monopolization process from a bigger angle, when you know, a wider scope. When you look at the Premier League, it's really accelerative, is this monopolization process. The first 10 years of the Premier League, and this relates to Arsenal, you could win the title on 80 points. That was the average. 80 points. Think back to when you first won it. Wenger's it was 78 points. You
78, yeah, I was going to say 78 points.
You'd be bottle jobs at 78 points now. If Arsenal get 78 points this season, you are nowhere near the top two. You know, nowhere near it, never mind winning. When Man United won it the season after, they won it on 79. Now, they were champions of Europe that year, 1999.
Yeah.
79 points. Do you remember that Kevin Keegan ran? Yeah, I'd love it if we beat them.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
96, 97. That was a 4-horse title race. Arsenal would finish second, joint second on 68. Man United won it on 75. I mean, these are really low tallies for winners, because the league was a lot more competitive back then. The gap between the best and the rest wasn't as big. In the second 10 years, it goes up to 87. So you can see that the better teams are getting stronger. In the third 10 years of the Premier League, the third decade, we're now in the fourth, of course. In the third decade, it goes to 91. So there's one standout season, Leicester. It's 2016. They won it on 81 points, and they won it by 10 points. So for whatever reason, the big teams, the big guns weren't firing. But in the 7 seasons after that, the average is 94. That's the average of title winners. So there's only 114 points available. So if you want to win the title, Gooners, right, this is how you need to think about it. It's not about how many points you get. It's now about how many points you lose. Yes, so see it that way. You can only, basically 20 points. If you lose 20 points, you'll probably win it on 94. I mean, don't forget that Liverpool finished second on 97.
Yeah,
one season. But so that's the way to look at it now. It's become that ridiculous. City have already lost 10 points this season. So there's a good chance they might be out the race. But what's probably going to happen is this. They'll spend it 70 million quid in January on a brilliant DM to replace Rodri. That's probably likely, because they need to go on those 15, 16 game winning streaks again now, because they can't afford. If you have 5 games, right, you draw 3 and lose 1 and win 1, which isn't a bad run. You've only lost once in 5. You've just dropped 9 points. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. You can't really afford to draw anymore. So that's the best way to look at it. Can you get to 95 points is the way. That's what you should be thinking now if you want to win the league. It's 2.4 points a game. That's the average. If you look at Liverpool, they're on 2.5 now. So
that ain't great, Micky, is it? It's not great for football.
No, it's completely pointless. Excuse the pun. But, you know, you look at the bottom end of this as well. All those points have got to come from somewhere. So they come from the Premier League really now is kind of like it's a few different leagues, isn't it? There's always that title race, which Arsenal are up there with, involved with that kind of scrap. Then there's that middle kind of like 5 or 6, top 8 kind of, you know, vibe. And then it's really bottom 12. But now what you've also got is a bottom 3 that just the 3 that come up go down. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
And those that go down come up. So I reckon that because of this is all based on wages. In the Championship now, you've got Sheffield United, Burnley. They're going to go up because they just came down and they've got the biggest wage bills. And in that 3 as well, you've got Leeds, because we've just had the Red Bull investment. We've still got parachute payments from our previous season in the Premier League. So we will go up this season, I think. I mean, you've got the playoffs. It's always a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
But 2 of those 3 will go up. And then in 2 years' time, 2 of those 3 will be top 2 in the Championship again. Does that make sense? In the 2026-27 season, I think Leeds United, Sheffield United or Burnley will win it. I think it'll lump on now because
yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. It's such a
just
fascinating
up,
thing.
down, and that's it.
It's not good for football. It's not good.
We are frozen in time. I think it's the end of history. I really do. Who else could win? Leicester was a one-off, yeah. But what you've got to remember is the monopolies that they respond to that. They respond big time. They can't let that happen. And what you've also got now is UEFA are now ceding advantage to the bigger clubs. Why? Because of the European Super League, the company called A22 formed it, and they did it outside the remit of UEFA and FIFA. And what's happened is this: they've shit themselves, basically. Excuse my French, because what they've seen is a threat to their power, their power. So that we could do this without you. So what they're doing now is suddenly thinking, if we lose all the big clubs, the top six in England, and you Barcelona's, Real Madrid's, etc. If we lose those, then the commercialization is gone. Sure. They take with them all those, because these are worldwide teams, really. So they're having to cede advantage to them. And what's happening now is the European Super League is happening really under the guise of under the influence of UEFA. So they can't afford to lose these teams. They give them what they want. You look at Man City charges, 115 charges. That won't stick because they can't afford to upset City. Because if they do, City will go to A22 and they'll go, let's get that European Super League going again. And then you wait for it. So there's power struggle now. So what you're also noticing is the Champions League this season is indeed a league. And it's not very good. It's a bit useless. There's no jeopardy. If you can lose 3 games now in Europe and you'll still get qualified or promoted or whatever it is now, it should be a knockout competition. It's risky. You can go away, you lose 2-0, you've got to pull it back in one game. And anyone can beat anyone on any day. But when you play each other 4 or 5 times, the bigger teams will always win out eventually. So it's become frozen in time as football. The same teams win everything. The European Super League is happening incrementally. This is just another step towards it. You're watching a European Super League right now. It's genuinely a league. So slowly but surely, the ESL, as they call it, is going to happen. The economics are really telling. It has to happen because that's what the economic system wants. It's about monopolization. It's about all the money going up to the top. And that's what's been happening at a faster and faster pace ever since Murdoch entered the fray in, 92, 93. Yeah. And it's become soulless. It's become boring. One of the just it is a good idea, Lee, right? One small thing you can do. It's not a big change. And it will help even football up. And this rule doesn't need to be applied in Europe, just domestically in the Premier League. And I think most people will be massively on board with this. But how about it's a fluid concept, so it could be 2 players, 1 player, or 3 players, etc. How about 2 players on the pitch under the age of 23 that were born in certain hospitals in your area, your local boys? You have to play them. If you take one of them off, you have to replace one. And that makes clubs look inwards. It means that someone like Saka will come through, won't he? Yeah, that's great. But then he stays in the team. When he gets to 23, you've got to replace. You go again. It puts the focus towards youth development. It means that we have loads of chances at every level for youth players to shine, and it means you've got to look inwards. And it means that teams have got weaknesses. If you don't actually produce high quality players, you will have weaknesses in your team. It means you've got to look inwards. Just a simple measure like that would help to stop this monopolization process, and it means teams win on their own terms as well.
Yeah, so you don't really think about it until someone tells you about it, because all of a sudden, because you're just sort of in the warp of it, aren't you? You're in the bubble of football.
Yeah, that's right.
You want to win yourself and things like that. But there was a stage not long ago that I never thought Arsenal could win the league again. I still don't know if I think that they can because of all of this, what goes on. And when you look at it like that, you've made a great point in, because I just think about Arsenal, you know what I mean? And that's it. But you don't really think about other teams around you and what they're doing and whatever. And as you say, like this European thing is a joke. I get that. But I go to games now, and I don't enjoy it, like the VAR sort of stuff and everything like that. And, you can't celebrate goals like you used to and all that. They're telling you, aren't they? These people are telling you how to watch football nowadays. And this is where I'm saying now, us fans really haven't got a choice. We just have to go along with it. But with your book and all that, this is what we're saying, that this could change.
There's no democracy, is there, in English football? We never got consulted on anything, and VAR should be our choice. If we want to, if you ask football fans to do a survey, and by the way, no one's ever thought to do that, and no one cares what we think because it's not our game anymore. But would you prefer to just go, do you know what? You get some hours, you get some bad decisions, but we'll take it because we'll get rid of VAR. I mean, if that's what we want, that's what should happen.
Exactly that. I don't want it no more. I'll be honest. Referees were that bad, but after doing it for how many years we've done it, I don't want it. I want the technology of the goal line thing and everything like that. But I don't want this offside thing brought with. Like, if they start bringing out lines, I think that means that it's onside. As soon as they go, well, we've got to bring lines out, this a goal. I don't want any of it. Go back to how it was. And as fans, paying customers, we should have a choice. We should say, if every say, I don't know how many fans would vote for it, but it would say it was a majority, then that should be how it should be. But say, for instance, 90% of the fans wanted VAR gone, it still wouldn't be gone.
No, they don't care. It's authoritarian. It's an authoritarian system. And when you say it like that, it sounds a bit scary, but that's exactly what it is. We have never been consulted on anything. I mean, do you know what's interesting, Lee, is that no one knows how this happened. It's all happened behind closed doors. This is what the book does. It's split into 3 parts. I'll show you it again. I feel like a salesperson. But
no, sell it. This is what we're here for.
Well,
so sell it.
Chapter 1 describes what's happened to English football, the political process of how it's happened. Part 2 explains how you can get out of it. We've got an amazing opportunity ahead of us, and it's an incredible opportunity. And part 3 actually reflects on who are we? What do we stand for? Because as far as I can tell, I don't think we stand for anything. What movements do you? We romanticize ourselves in our own cultural consciousness, but what football was is now dead. It's finished. Arsenal as it was. In fact, it's quite interesting. I've written about Arsenal's ownership specifically in the book. It was great. When Stan Kroenke, is that how you pronounce his name?
Stan Kroenke, yeah, whatever.
Whatever he is. He took ownership of the club. The people who owned Arsenal were generational descendants of the people that first invested. Some of them were. And there's a really interesting piece of regulation the Victorians set up. Now, the Victorians handed down football to us, and it's been destroyed now. What they did was really interesting. It took them a couple of decades to work it out, but they regulated everything really heavily and protected football as a community asset, really, as a social thing. A club is a group of people, isn't it? That's important. It's not just a business. Yeah. So football clubs weren't typical businesses. They had something in place called Rule 34. Rule 34 meant that shareholders weren't allowed to take out profits. You weren't allowed to take out dividends of a football club. And if a football club was liquidated, all the money went to charity. So this is a really interesting piece of regulation. No one knows about it. So when Stan Kroenke, I can't say his name, he's American, isn't it? Which is typical, where Leeds are owned by Americans. Our football clubs are now private organisations, private companies that are foreign owned. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. But anyway, he spent about 300 million on Arsenal, something like that. And all the money went to these people. It just got sucked out of Arsenal. They just walked away into the sunset. But their ancestors who invested in Arsenal, they weren't allowed to do that. They weren't allowed to take money out. So you can see already how football has changed. They ignored the regulation. The key year, do you know what it is? It's 1983. That's the key year in football. Everyone will think 1992, 93, Premier League starts. But that doesn't happen in a vacuum. It gets set up. And it goes back to 1983 is the key year, because that's the first time Rule 34 was abandoned. Rule 34 has never been repealed. It was still in the FA handbook in the 90s. David Conn's the best journalist for this. Really great journalist, David Conn. He's done a lot of work on Rule 34. So who was the first person to do it? That was the old enemy, wasn't it? Irving Scholar at Spurs. So Spurs were the first to bypass Rule 34. All he did was he wrote to the FA and he said, I want to bypass Rule 34. They didn't respond. Now, you can't take money out of football clubs. This is how he got around it. He set up a holding company tethered to the parent company. The parent company is Spurs. The money doesn't leave the club. It goes from the parent company into the holding company. But guess who owns the holding company? And that's how they got around it. Now, why did they do it in 1983? It's the first year that broadcasting is happening regular, weekly broadcasting. There's a duopoly, BBC, ITV, and they're pumping money into the sport now. So suddenly the rich people who own clubs are going, I could do with a bit of this. It's also the first year the Victorians did this. Do you remember that? And it's still the case in the FA Cup, I think. Gate receipts are shared.
Yeah.
Gate receipts were always shared. The idea was this, that bigger teams in, urban centres couldn't dominate provincial towns. It was shared between people, between clubs. That was scrapped in 83 as well. So you've got this, basically what's happened is in the wider political landscape, you've gone from the 1970s. You were around the 1970s, Lee. Do you remember the Winter of Discontent, 1978?
I do, yeah. Well,
yeah. So what you've got here is the economy's tanked. We can't afford enough oil to run it. We go down to a 3-day week.
Yeah.
It's all sparked from an oil crisis in the Middle East. So that's basically kiboshed Keynesianism, this economic kind of ideology that we had in the post-war era. Everything gets nationalised in post-World War II, NHS, stuff like that. That's all out the window in the mid-70s. And what it gets replaced by is Thatcherism, really. Thatcher comes in. It's called neoliberalism. It's a bit of an abstract term. But basically it means this: deregulation, privatisation, and free market economics. That comes in and that affects football. So that's what happens to football. Deregulation. Rule 34 is out the window. Sharing of gate receipts, gone. Privatisation. Clubs are privately owned now without any restrictions on what owners can do. They're not community assets anymore. They're just typical businesses. And world markets coming in slowly. Our clubs have been brought to world market and sold to financial elites and even ridiculously foreign states. I mean, it's crazy that Saudi Arabia own Newcastle. Just saying that. When you start looking at football rationally, Lee, you become a sane person in an insane world. And football really is it's just been run into the ground. And the Premier League are useless. You look at VAR. We talked about it briefly, but they the way they do VAR in Europe is a lot better. They have that; it's a lot quicker. But the Premier League messed it up. They're useless. They're useless in a lot of ways. There's one thing they've done well, or one thing that Murdoch did well, and he's created this global brand. This I think it's 200 million people pay to watch Premier League football around the world, and on the big games. Arsenal, Spurs, you're looking at about 500, 600 million people are tuning in to watch that. Do you know what that is? That's our market. What if we owned football? And what if we didn't just own football? Clubs. What if we owned broadcasting? What if we owned gambling companies? What if we owned brewery system? What if we owned shirt manufacturing? So this is a new way of looking at football. And is it even possible? Yeah. You've got to go into politics to do this. There's one way we can kick out club owners. Only one way, because it's private property now. Arsenal is owned by, American businessmen. They can do what they want. There's no democracy in football at all. So this is how you do it. I'm going to use HS2 as an example. Might seem like a tangent, this, but it isn't. HS2 is a train line from London to Birmingham. Costs 70 billion. It's shaving about 15 minutes off a train journey. 70 billion pounds. It's a lot of money. Now, if you're in the way of HS2, your house is in the way, it gets taken off you. And this is legal because the state has the right to take property off people if it's in the public interest and if it's done according to the law. So all you've got to do when you do that is financially compensate. So your house gets taken off you. If your house is worth 300 grand, they'll probably give you about 350. You get high-end market valuation. It's a nice little gift. Off you go. The same law applies to football club owners. And Brexit's a massive opportunity. Now, I'm not arguing if Brexit is good or bad. It is what it is, and we are where we are. But inside the European Union, we couldn't do this because what the owners would do is appeal to the European courts. And it would be a really messy, drawn-out affair. We are actually free from all that regulation now. So the legal possibility to just take football clubs from football club owners exists. We have to adhere to the European Court of Human Rights. And that just says two things. Do it according to the law and do it in the public interest. And it's legal. And when you've done it, pay them. Give them compensation. I mentioned HS2, 70 billion. You can buy every single football club combined in the country for somewhere between 25 and 30 billion. It's really cheap. HS2, 70 billion. Do you remember COVID? Of course you do. Do you remember track and trace? That was 37 billion pounds. The government are spending tens of billions of pounds on all sorts of stuff. They're giving the energy companies over 130 billion. I mean, that's ridiculous to continue to rip us off. What if we use the state as a lever to buy our clubs? That's the plan. We've got to politicise. We've got to form a political party to do this. We don't have to win in the House of Commons to do it. Not necessarily. There's different ways of doing it. You look at Brexit, you look at UKIP. They didn't get a single MP elected, but they got Brexit done. You don't need to win. You just need to create political pressure. 25 to 30 billion is not a lot of money. It's state spending. I know the country's skin, but get this. We have no digital tech. This sounds like a tangent again, but it isn't. In this country, in Britain, in the 21st century, we have no digital tech of our own. No digital tech infrastructure. It's all American companies. It's all even web servers, everything is owned by an American company. So why don't we create a little bit of digital tech? The way you do this is broadcasting. You create a single digital broadcasting service and you do Premier League football to the rest of the world, just a single source. Amazon already do it. Apple already do it in the MLS. The technology exists. The customer base exists. 200 million people. You charge them £10 a month, £24 billion a year. That's what we could be bringing in from broadcasting. How much are wages? Premier League wages? Under 4 billion. It's not a lot. And we talked about, you can buy the clubs for 25, 30 billion. In 2 years, we could have paid it back. We could have paid the state back with interest. And that's just from looking at broadcasting differently. How do you take broadcasting? It's free. You wait till the end of a contract cycle and take it for free. You build that digital tech infrastructure. As soon as Sky contract ends or TNT, you go, thanks for all your hard work, lads. Nice one. And you just take it for free.
Yeah, brilliant.
I mean, and this is, there you go. That's how you run football as a public service. You kick out the unelected foreigners, which is what basically Brexit was supposedly about. I don't mean that in a jingoistic term. It's actually true. These people that own our clubs, the foreigners and the unelected, no one put them there. We didn't vote for them. So we didn't vote for them to be there. This is about democratizing football. And there's also a new public form of ownership. So the state won't own football. We will, through something called a public commons partnership. Try and find it in here. It's the only diagram. It's the only here it is. This is a public commons partnership. Okay, it's a new form of ownership, public ownership. It's genius. The state owns about 10%. We will own 90% of football. And how a football club will be run is this. So I want you to imagine Arsenal now as a public commons partnership. It's merged with the council. Sounds crazy because the council are fucking useless a lot of the time. But it's not in a way that the council will influence Arsenal. Arsenal will influence the council. It's called the local authority. That's one way that it's managed. Another one is the the Common Association. The Common Association is us, commoners, people who just put money in. You become a paid member of your club. And the third way they're governed is through experts, a body of experts. So it's called the joint enterprise. So football clubs will be run by experts. They'll be merged with councils, which means you can, like land purchases, stuff you want to build, you can influence the council. Let's go. Come on, let's do it. And they'll be democratically run by us, but they won't be run by us day to day. It's just, to be fair, you can choose how to run your club how you want, but that's how football clubs will be managed. How they'll be democratically run, and all this money from broadcasting. You're talking tens of billions of pounds a year. we can put it into our communities. There'd be no debt in football. Debt is a ridiculous thing to have. In football's a sport. Yeah, it's not part of the wider economy. Why should a football club go bust? Businesses go bust. Yeah, fair enough. Liquidations and administrations, they belong in the commercial realm. They don't belong in football.
Yeah.
A football club it's handed down from generation to generation. It's like a religious connection for people. For it to go, but you don't see a church or a synagogue or a mosque going bust because, these places have meaning. And I think I'm not saying that football is a genuine religion, but it's got religious connotations. So the idea of debt and stuff like that, it's all out the window. We've normalized some really weird stuff. I mean, and you look at the way the Americans do sport, it's similar to the Victorians, actually. It's the same thing. They have a wage cap, they have fairness, fair competition, central funding. They don't have this cut and thrust of, business acumen. One bad owner and you're finished. It's happened too many times. And there's a lot of clubs flirting with financial peril now. And you look at football, even Arsenal are in loads of debt. Debt's everywhere. But that's what this, we talked about that word neoliberalism. That's what it does. It creates debt. Financialization, it creates debt. And that's what we've got now. Just why everyone's in debt. So there's a different way of looking at football here. We can create wealth instead. And, within this kind of, my idea is that we're going to create a huge corporation and we're going to use that corporation to lobby our own government because that's what happens now. Our government just listens to corporations and politicians are bought and paid for at some level. Even when Keir Starmer comes in, it's supposed to be different. It's the same thing, isn't it? Everyone's pissed off. I mean, the centre ground is falling apart. People are going left or right because it's bullshit. The whole thing is bullshit. It's a pack of cards waiting to come down, really. So there's a new way to do this. We create the corporation. We own the corporation. This corporation is going to have a digital tech, What about a social media company as well? There's a good way to do this. A social media company that we can all communicate on that isn't owned by a foreign billionaire. It's owned by us. We decide the rules. It's got a broadcasting service to the rest of the world. How about a gambling company? It's such an easy, just a gambling company we all own. Just embed it in the private sector, have that in there as well. What about a brewery system? We all like going to have a drink before the game, or a lot of people do anyway. And, if there's that, you're scanning the taps on match day and that, that drink pays back into football. You likely buy it. And so, and shirt manufacturing too. You ain't buying an Arsenal shirt because it's made by Nike or Adidas. You're buying it because it's Arsenal. And on a worldwide scale, we need to get some trade balance here. We need to manufacture stuff in this country. We don't. We've outsourced it all. Be a good idea to start manufacturing shirts on British soil as well. And we own the products. And we'd have to do some elsewhere, offshore, probably Asia, keep costs down. But at the moment, you've got people working for 21p an hour by making English football shirts. It's wrong. We could control the moral landscape of it. But the idea is a huge corporation we own, and we lobby our own government through it. It's about democracy. It's about actually using football's huge wealth and putting it all back into our communities. And I'll just say one more thing, Lee, because I know it's a lot of information, this.
No, it's fascinating.
We go from 0 to 100, don't we? And it's like, but really good idea as well, this. Instead of no advertising in football, all we're going to do is fund it through subscription. Millions of people paying small amounts. That's it. And you have billions of pounds. If we give away 10% ownership rights to foreigners and they can pay £1 a month, then the amount of money you're going to be making at Arsenal is huge. Man United is an example here because they supposedly our biggest club, probably are really commercially. They've got 650 million fans worldwide. So Arsenal are probably looking at something similar. If you can get 500 million people to pay £1 a month, that's £6 billion a year. Arsenal could be looking to go, let's just use 100 million people, around the world. I don't think that's unrealistic target for a club the size and prestige of Arsenal. You get 100 million people paying £12 a year. It's over £1 billion. What do you want to do with it? And that's not even we're not even doing the broadcasting here. That's coming in. There's a totally new way you can run football, Lee, as a public service, a democratically and collectively owned public service. That's the proposal.
I tell you what, it's fascinating. And then like there would be like, I take it, football be a little bit more even by then. Like, would you say that
It's up to us. We decide the regulation. What I've done is I've come up with some new regulation. Now, I don't want to go on about it too much because it's important people focus on the big concept here, not the little micro details. Because the big concept is we've got something to fight for here. There is no fight back at all from English fandom. What I've done is I've designed this like an architect designs a house. Yeah. I've designed it. Yeah, it's people could go, dream on, you're in dreamland. This is never going to happen. But what you do is, all I've done is this, Lee. I've just said to myself, we're going to fail. Yeah? Just keep failing. Just keep failing. Enough of us get together and say, yeah, of course we're going to fail. You just keep failing, and you fail together, and you keep failing over the years, over the decades if necessary, and you fail less and less and less. You build political pressure. I reckon there's about 10 million of us that would be into this, because 10 million of us who are really invested in clubs, that would have the most to gain. And we're going to build a political movement slowly but surely. And there's little things we can do to gain belief, really, and to spread belief in the idea. One of them is just local elections. You can take them really easy. The idea is we've got to politicize. Germans are very political. The Germans are showing us how to do it, really. But you talked about the regulation. I know I went off on tangents with the ADHD and all that. Everyone's got it now, aren't they? But like I said, just put it in locality. And this is a lot of the regulation I've imported from the US. I've talked about the Americans, how they do sport.
Yeah.
It's the same as the Victorians. They had a wage cap. What you've got to do is this: if you want to make money and you want to keep things fair, but you also want global stars, we have to have the best league in the world, because if we don't, we lose that customer base. So high quality, brilliant players, we need them. Of course we do. So first you do this, you keep the wage bill really high. I've raised it to about 5.5 billion for the Premier League, 5.5 billion. You put a wage cap on, then you go, right, you can sign 3 players outside the wage cap. It could be 4, it could be 5. This is what the Americans did to sign Beckham. LA Galaxy in 2007. It's called the designated player rule. So you've still got free market economics, but only to a certain extent. Clubs have pretty broadly got the same amount to spend. Bigger clubs like Arsenal do have an advantage, but it's not one that will win you the title every season. And if you put that, that development, that youth development idea into it, you've got to play 2 players from that certain hospitals. It just means that a wage cap that I think will get a fairer Premier League. And I think this is the best way to look at it. It doesn't matter who wins the Premier League. It matters how many points. If you can get a Premier League season where 70 can win it and 45 sees you relegated, now that's one hell of a competition, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a competitive league, yeah.
We can sell that to the rest of the world, pal.
Yeah, that is so. Do you know what? Just going back to one thing there you mentioned earlier on, and about, I remember when they changed the FA Cup money, but I would never thought of it like you've just told it to me. You just thought, oh, well, they're just changing it and whatever. Do you know what I mean? So you sort of like, not hoodwinked, you don't know. You just sort of like, think like, well, yeah, they're doing that. But then further down the line, you can even look back to that now as that maybe one of the reasons the FA Cup's not so great as what it is, because the competition of the FA Cup isn't as competitive as it was it? Like, like years ago, you used to have like loads of shocks in the FA Cup and all that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean, but you don't get them so much now because, again, is what you're turning around and saying, the gap between the Premier League sides and the lower league sides is massive now, where so much that Arsenal, Spurs, Man United, even Leeds can say, well, we'll play our reserves or our squad for a game against a lower team and beat them.
Yeah. Beat them comfortably. Yeah, I mean, from 1973, because I've done this research, no one else is looking at the bigger picture, Lee.
No, that's what I'm saying. I've never looked at the bigger picture.
No one does. No one's doing it. And they talk about divide and rule, yeah? We're divided perfectly, aren't we? into our little bubbles, into our tribal kind of allegiances. The idea is this: if we all stand together and realise that we're all cut from the same cloth here, and if we it's a case of unite and rule. Looking at the FA Cup, I just did some. It's just simple research. No, it's a failure of journalism. Is this from 1973 to 1980? 3 second division teams won the Premier League. You just don't see those shocks anymore. In the last shock was Lazy Gang. The last real. Maybe Wigan. You had Portsmouth as well. But since it's 1988, Wimbledon beat Liverpool 1-0 in the final. Yeah. In the 36 seasons since that, the Big Six have won it on 32 occasions. That's 90% of the time. I think it's Wigan, Portsmouth, Everton, and I think it's Villa. That's happened. So those 4 have won it but it's 90% of the time the Big Six have won it. The EFL Cup's the same. It's the same figure in the past 20 years. Borough won it in 2004, but since then, in the 20 years, it's been won by the Big Six on 18 occasions. So it's 90%, the same figure. It's always it's never a second division side, isn't it? We're just talking top 6 here.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So basically, if you're not in the top 6, your chances of winning something is minimal. Unless you drop down to the Championship.
Yeah. If you drop down to the Championship, your chances are pretty much zero, aren't they? Yeah, I think some teams will get, like Coventry got to the semis last season, but you will get found out. If they'd have played Man City in the final, they got battered.
Yeah,
they got beat by. In fact, they got robbed, and I think it was VAR.
Yeah, VAR done it, Man United.
They got robbed against Man United. But I remember all the money and all the best players in the world are getting sucked, and the best coaches too. They're all getting sucked up into about 12 teams, and that's it. You can't. If you produce a great player, it goes. Look at Leeds, right? We've just lost Harry, right? Archie Gray. His brother's Harry Gray's even better coming through. We just lost him at 18. 18, he's got the Spurs.
Yeah,
we can't. Even like teams like you've got Saka, yeah, and he's not really going anywhere, is he? But you could go to Real Madrid. That there is somewhere up for Arsenal, and it's Real or Barcelona, or I think Trent Alexander's looking at doing it, isn't he? As well.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the pyramid. That's the top. But so you look at someone like Gareth Bale. He did really well at Spurs. He was too good at Spurs, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the best point I've made, I suppose, for a Gooner. But you go up. So I mean, you look at Arsenal. So you look at Everton. You look at Villa. You look at West Ham. Not far from you lot. They can't keep the best players. Declan Rice is gone. He's gone to Arsenal. Yeah. You look at Anthony Gordon. Gone to the top 7 now because they're owned by a sovereign state with hundreds of billions of pounds floating in the. This is a crazy thing, Lee. In 1995, I think it was Blackburn won it, bankrolled by a wealthy businessman. He had about 300 million to his name. Now it's 300 billion. This is where we are. It's thousands of % increase in the amount of wealth because the oil industry is pretty much running football, which is again just a ridiculous notion. We've got to do something here, Lee.
Yeah.
We've got to think outside the system. That's all I've done. And basically the idea is this. Do you know what, mate? I've got a book launch. Do you know the Volley Club? The Volley. It's in Hackney. There's a pub called the Volley. Hackney. I've got a book launch. If anyone wants to come down, I'd be delighted to see you there. And we can. Yeah.
When is it?
Friday the 13th, mate. What could go wrong? So Friday the 13th of December. And
right, and that's at the Valley, which is in
Hackney.
Hackney, like that. I mean,
it'd be great to see you there. If anyone can make it,
I'll be there Friday the 13th.
I've got a little banner. We'll make this, and we'll sit there. I'll explain a bit of the theme. The book's out on the 3rd. You can pre-order it now, of course. I'll send you some links. If it's football, the people's shame, it'll come up. But we've got the book launch there, and basically I'm going to use it as a meeting. Like what we're going to do, how we're going to organise, because I'm setting up the Northern Front. It's already happening. Liverpool, FC United. I'm speaking to later. I need to set up. It's easier for me up north because I'm from there, but I need to set up the southern front too when we need to organise and we need to start. I'm not asking you to, the great march starts with the long march starts with the first step, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm just asking you to think about it. That's all. We don't even need to step. We just need to get our heads together and go, what can we do? And of course, there's loads. London has just got so many football clubs. And
it's unbelievable you say that because, like, just thinking about it, like we signed Aaron Ramsey from Cardiff when he was 18. I didn't think nothing of the repercussions for Cardiff on that. It's just thinking about Arsenal, Tiger and Gooners just said in the chat, West Ham and Southampton, if they'd been able to keep all of their players, they would have been able to have. Do you remember Southampton? Like, I think Liverpool nicked about 4 or 5 of them at one stage.
Van Dijk. Yeah,
Van Dijk, Lallana, they had Lambert, they had about 4 or 5 Sane. They took a load.
One as well. It eludes me now. But yeah, you're right. Southampton,
Chamberlain they had there at the time we took him.
Walcott. Yeah, Chamberlain. That was the one I was trying to think of. He was Southampton, wasn't he?
Yeah, Southampton. Walcott.
I mean, really what should have happened there was Southampton should have had a bit of a glory period of maybe 4 or 5 years. And then you go up and you fade. You go up, you have a great time, and then you don't win it again for a while. That's how it should be. Not because do you know what else has happened, Lee? Arsenal fans feel really humiliated. We all do because we don't stand for anything, and we're not unless you're winning. It's a whole thing about only the winners matter. That's the way that it kind of works now. Football, only the winners matter. So when you're not winning, you feel humiliated because we're not winning on our own terms. We're not fighting for anything on our own terms. Arsenal's not about Arsenal anymore. It's a vehicle for commercialization, isn't it? It's a geopolitical playground. Is Arsenal? It's a launch pad for the Americans into Europe. It's all sorts of things. Owning a football club is a good way to aid kind of commercial strategies elsewhere. He doesn't give a flying fuck about Arsenal fans. No. He doesn't give a flying fuck about Arsenal, but he owns it. And that in itself is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We've got to do something from outside the system, Lee. And I mentioned earlier about A22 and the challenge to UEFA. Suddenly UEFA panic. If we can set something up and it looks like we're building, listen, this is the idea. We get rid of the Premier League. We replace them. We get rid of the FA, all of them. You're all going. You're not part of this. When you start saying that, and when the movement starts to build, they will panic. Because what they're really about is protecting their own power. Yeah. So they'll start going £20 tickets for football. Yeah, fine. We will get concessions from them. They will concede ground. We've got to, do you know what, mate? We've got to attack, but we haven't got anything to defend. We've got nothing to lose. We don't have anything. So what have we got to lose by having a go? And I said earlier, people just go, that'll never happen. Let's start failing then. Let's start failing as fast as we can.
And do you know what it does? Because it's not just about Arsenal or Leeds or whatever. Like a couple of them have just thrown some names through. Like now, Gareth Bale was at Southampton. Luke Shaw was at Southampton. Southampton would have won the league for about 3 or 4 years.
Champions of Europe, mate. Can you imagine that team?
But so it's incredible. So basically, like a club like Southampton's they've done everything right, and it's just been taken away from them because of financial powers of other teams, isn't it? Really, like if you
you look at the rules like FFP and stuff like that. There's so many loopholes. They're so complex, and they keep changing them all the time because it's a useless system. And what it tells clubs to do this: you've got to make money because the more money you make, the more money you can spend. So it compels clubs to put those £150 tickets. I bet there's loads of Arsenal fans watching that can't afford to go to Arsenal. I bet, and if you can, I bet loads of people that can't afford to get in. We're locked out of our own clubs. I went down to watch Spurs, actually. Leeds were playing them, yeah? My mate of mine works in the city. He gets the odd corporate thing. So we went down to Spurs, and I got chatting to this guy, and he was saying, I can't get a season ticket because they've only got so many. They don't want season ticket holders. They want corporate people because they spend more money. They want tourists because they spend more money. And he said, I had to part with, I'd spent, it's $4,000 to watch for a season ticket there in this little corporate area. It's not even like a box. It's just like the corporate area of the stand. £4,000 for a ticket. So he's paid for him and his son £8,000 a year, and he had to fork out for 3 seasons. He had to pay up front 3 seasons. So it cost him 24 grand to watch his local team. But, you know, he's a city banker, this bloke. Right? He can afford it. Nice guy. Yeah. But he's got a good job. He can afford it. How many other Spurs lads can afford that, or lasses can afford that? And it's the same with Arsenal.
That is right. So what it's the same over at Arsenal. You can't. There's a 30-year waiting list for season tickets, but if you want to get a corporate one for 5-6 grand, you can get it. Like, you know,
exactly.
Not exactly. You might have to wait a little while for it, but they're there. You know.
Do you know what? I've never been to your stadium. I've been once. I did a corporate there. I'm a comedian, and I did a little corporate show there. Lovely stadium. What's the atmosphere like on match day?
Atmosphere is brilliant now. Really, really good.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, we'll have to get you a ticket, Micky. You have to come down, like. You know what
I'd love to, mate. I'd love to. I'd love to. I'll go past it on train, don't you? Going up
yeah.
It's a lovely stadium, and but that's what it's about: a good atmosphere and general, you know, genuine fans supporting the club through thick and thin. But in a lot of Premier League grounds now, you need a space element. There is no atmosphere. It's just tourists with phones. It's tourists with phones in it. And in Man City, they've got they're not actually renewing season tickets. So if you die or you give up your season ticket, it doesn't get into a ballot. They want rid of them because it's just tourists, just businessmen.
Yeah, they want the tour. Well, at the end of the day, you know, from a business point of view, I get that. You know what I mean? For myself, I walk in and I walk out. You know what I mean? But if a tourist comes, they come, you know, if you go into the corporate bits and all that they've got someone comes around with a shopping list so you can go and buy what you want. And you don't even have to go down to the shop. They buy it. So you go, I'll have this, and this. And you're halfway eating your meal when a woman comes in with 2 bags loads of stuff. Oh, there's all your order and everything like that. Thank you very much. Then the next game, there's somebody else doing that, like, you know. Yeah. So that's what they want.
How about, you know, it'd be a lot better really if we gave a portion of the ground to tourists, you know, because we talk about ownership rights and stuff and giving away 10%. It'd be so much better if we just went, we want tourists in, just give them a corner of the ground. They can come in and watch us, you know, but we want money, we want to make money, but not at our own expense. You know, and a football club isn't a business. It's not a typical business. It's more than that. It's a community asset. That's how the Victorians saw it.
Well, listen, when it comes to football, I'm not being always like, if you know, I've got a Sainsbury's and a Tesco's that are not too far for it. You know, if they're charging, I don't know, £5 for a pack of biscuits and only £1, that I'm going to go from Tesco's to Sainsbury's. I can't move from Arsenal to Spurs. You can't do it. So they've got you. No. They've got you by the old, you know, short and curlies. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, you know what I mean? And basically, it doesn't matter how crap Arsenal are, I ain't going to stop supporting them.
You've hit the nail on the head, mate. That's exactly how it is, right? It betrays market sensibilities. It shouldn't be seen. It shouldn't be embedded in the market. It's not a fair market. It's a natural monopoly. Privatisation doesn't work when it's a natural monopoly. Look at trains. Look at water. You're down in the southeast. You know that the Thames Water's in it's a £15 billion worth of debt, and you've got £18 billion worth of repairs to make. Who's paying for all that? And by the way, you add those 2 figures together, that's less than every single club costs. Football's cheap, mate. It's cheap.
It's unbelievable.
And that's what you've got to remember here. But yeah, it's a natural monopoly. It doesn't, you can't, I can't just go and support someone else, neither can you. We're stuck here.
Yeah, so we're stuck.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It is, man. You know, there'd be plenty of Spurs fans that if they could, they'd have swapped years ago, but they just can't, like, you know. So. Listen, before we go, Micky, just give us one more plug on the book. Let everybody know where the launch is. I'll put it in my diary. I'm gonna make that. So come down.
Thanks so much, Lee. Yeah, do you know what I will do in that? But before that, what you just said about you know, Spurs, it's funny. With these rivalries we've got, they're brilliant, you know, and we are really funny as a culture, aren't we? British. What we do best is sport, humour, and music, you know. And there's a way of bringing all that together. And we've got to use that, but we've got to see outside those rivalries as well, because we're all cut from the same cloth. We're all part of the same movement. When you really look at it, we've all met a mate of a mate at a party or wherever, and they say they're not interested in football, and your heart sinks. You think, fucking hell, you know what are we going to talk about?
Yeah,
so it's about seeing the bigger picture and seeing us all together. Now, if you're up for it, I'd love you to come down, and I'd love you to buy the book, Football: The People's Shame, and we're doing a book launch at the Volley in Hackney on Friday the 13th. It's easy one to remember, I suppose.
Easy one to remember, that is. Right?
Of December.
I'll get Dan to put that in the links and everything like that. Listen,
mate.
you can get yourself down there. I'm going to make sure that I'm down there. Come and meet us, and we'll have a look at the book and everything like that. Micky, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks,
and I'll
mate.
tell you what, I'm going to say this now. Fascinating. It's been.
Cheers, mate. Well, let's explore the idea together, mate. Let's explore it together.
Fascinating listen, So listen, thanks for everybody for listening, and don't forget, the book launch on Friday the 13th. Get yourself down there. Where can you get the book, Micky, if they can't come to the launch?
Anywhere you get books.
Anywhere you get books. So it's and when's it go on sale?
3rd of December, but you can pre-order now. Obviously, pre-order it now and get it involved. Amazon, Waterstones, whatever. I don't know.
So it can be all outlets. It can be done from like a lovely little Christmas filler for everybody there. And I'll tell you what, if it's as fascinating as this has been, it's going to be a good read,